Welcome to the Clifton Worley Show. This week we have the Worleybirds, Nick and Josh, and we also have special guest Emily Harris. Hey, Emily.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. Excited to have you on the show. Now, for some of you guys who are in a lot of the podcast groups or whatever, you may have noticed Emily recently in the last couple months. She's been very active there, and she drops some amazing memes and just is really witty and funny in there in a lot of the groups, especially like the Slum and 60 Cycle Hum. And so we wanted to have you on the show and just get to know you a little bit better and, uh, tell your story a little bit. Now, Emily, you've kind of been you're from Seattle, right? I mean, you're living in Seattle, but you've been living in Nashville before that, and you kind of been all over. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio,
Okay.
and I moved to Nashville, Tennessee for college. I studied music business at Belmont University, which you might remember from hosting one of the 2008 presidential debates. It's the one where John McCain kept walking in front of the camera.
Okay.
So it's a pretty fun little claim to fame for that one. After college, I worked in some marketing, mostly with a company owned by the ticketing company eTix, who you probably have bought tickets through and haven't noticed it. But I worked for their marketing arm. It was called Rock House. So I did marketing for live events, and sometimes it was for just club venues, sometimes bigger venues. But I primarily did marketing for our bigger clients, and those were sporting clients. So I did Music City Bowl, I did Circuit of the Americas, I did X Games in Austin, helped out a little bit with some NASCAR. And then I decided to move to Seattle about 3 years ago with my husband to be closer to family. My brother owns an art company out here. He has lived out here for, 6 years longer than I have. So yeah, I've just been out in Seattle since, just keeping busy, doing everything every minute of the day.
That's awesome. Well, that's such a drastic cultures between those two places. The West Coast
It's
and the East Coast. Well, not really the East Coast, but mid country, whatever. And so, what do you think the big difference is musically?
Oh, musically, well, Nashville's really famous, if you haven't heard, for country music and Christian music.
Yeah.
And you weirdly, Seattle has some pretty bomb country bands, sort of Western style bands, some like Americana, hillbilly punk kind of things, some real folk stuff. Not so much Christian bands, but Nashville also has a really great punk scene, with bands like Bully and um, who else? Daddy Issues and bands whose names I'd really rather not say on a podcast like this one. But musically, I think and I hate to say this because Nashville really does have great communities when you can find them. I found the Seattle music community a lot more easily, despite rumors of the Seattle Freeze. I've just found the community here to be very open and very interested and very, very communal. Everyone really talks to each other. The industry feels a lot smaller than Nashville, and I think a big part of that is there's not that competition for the major labels. There are indie labels here, most famously Sub Pop, and the big promoters definitely have, like AEG and Live Nation, have connections to Seattle mostly through some nonprofit organizations and their own things. But it's just so friendly and way less competitive. People aren't jumping over each other to get to the top. People aren't afraid to play open mic nights. A problem that's always existed in Nashville is you'll play an open mic night or some writers round or something, and other songwriters will be there with their notebooks out, writing down your
Oh my
lyrics and
goodness.
stealing
No
them.
way. No
It's
way,
it's a
really?
real thing. Yeah, sometimes I think it's more noticed now, but it definitely happens, and like what can you really do about it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, especially if you haven't copyrighted it yet, or you're just workshopping something. That
Yeah.
sucks.
Oh, exactly. I don't know anyone that's happened to or who knows about it, but yeah, there's always that kind of fear. It's kind of like how some comedians wouldn't super duper be excited if they knew like Robin Williams was coming to their show because he had, whether true or not, a reputation for being a joke thief. Though I don't know. I think sometimes you just forget where you hear something and you repeat it later.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of, I guess that could even seep into the podcast world if you're not careful. Just even like if you're listening to a bunch of them and then you're doing your own show. So it's kind of almost, it could almost be like you wake up one morning and you go write a song and you don't realize that you're spitting out what you might have heard at that writer's round 2 or 3 nights back, uh,
Exactly. I
without
mean,
even
it happened to
realizing it.
George Harrison. He didn't even realize when he was writing My Sweet Lord that, oh no, this is another song completely, just blatantly. He thought he came up with that melody,
Yeah.
allegedly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting conversation to have. I don't think you should honestly be able to copyright a melody or a chord progression or even like two or three words together. I mean, the thing as a whole, like all the lyrics and the chords and the progression, yes, but Western music is so simple, you can't really do that, I don't think.
Well, for George Harrison, like a riff here or there, that it's an identical melody
Yeah.
for that My Sweet Lord song. But yeah, sometimes you hear like was it Sam Smith's song that sounded I think it might just even had the same chord progression as Free Fallin' by Tom Petty. He just got ahead of it and gave Tom Petty some of the writing. For Beyonce's Lemonade, she has that I don't know if the song's called Hold Up, but the chorus goes, Hold up, she don't love you like I love you, or something like that. And if you look at the writing credits on that song, you see Karen O from the Yeah Yeah Yeahs, who you may remember way back in the early to mid 2000s had that huge song Maps. The hook for that song was They Don't Love You Like I Love You. And it wasn't because Karen O got mad and heard about it and it was they just got ahead of it and we're like, it's kind of similar. Might as well just like give her like 5 or 10%. She'll be super stoked to have 5 or 10% of a Beyonce cut.
Yeah.
And I mean, I
For
would
real.
be. Who wouldn't be?
I guess that's the cool way to do it. I mean, just to me, if you look at the folk tradition, or even if you look at the old tradition, there's maybe, if you really add it up, there's maybe 40 or 50 melodies and
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of songs written on those melodies. And even today, there's an awful lot of songs like that basically, they have these little hooky parts that are pieces and parts of other melodies. So at
Hmm.
what point do you think it's time to start attributing?
Life plus 90, I think is what some people have decided, or pre 1929. I think there's some song that was, gosh, I wish I remembered. I studied all this in college, but this happened recently. Someone was suing someone else for using their melody, and then they went back and said, actually, you stole this melody from a song in the public domain. So they were able to go back,
Hmm.
and the suit was dropped because, well, they did it first.
Yeah. I mean, what was it? Led Zeppelin, the Stairway to Heaven, right? That Tarsus song or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But what's funny is that I was listening to another podcast with I think it was Guitar Wank, and they were doing they're two jazz guys, and they said, you know what? This whole progression and even the melody is a common exercise in an old jazz book, almost note for note. Like this rising thing, it's implied by these chords, and it's an exercise that, you know what, Jimmy Page, being a studio musician and being able to read charts, he probably did this exercise at some point, and then
Yeah.
forgot about it, and then wrote the song using it,
Yeah.
and so it's like there's a point where that can be going too far, in my opinion, and it kind of
Oh,
stifles
yeah.
music because I mean, if you look at heck, if you look at Bob Dylan,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he does a lot of original stuff, but if you really look at the melodies, those melodies are all back there. They're all just they're kind of recycled and reimagined, but they're all there. They're all in the tradition.
Yeah.
Different mentality.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting conversation. I could go off on that rabbit trail for a long time, and talk about how a Willie Dixon song might have popped up in some Led Zeppelin lyrics, or like a Bob Dylan, like the Levee's Gonna Break. I mean, that's a rip, off the Modern Times album. Just that's. But you think about like rap music, like or hip hop. You see like the recycling, like it'd be like a phase where there's some kind of catchphrase that keeps like being recycled for a while, and then it'd kind of run out and something new. And so it's interesting how music runs that course, but I think from a creator standpoint, like you're making your living doing this, you definitely want to be able to be supported, especially if it's your original idea. And so, uh,
It's just who has the best lawyers, and it's probably not the person just starting.
no, no, you're exactly right. Um, well, talk with us a little bit before we get into some of the fun topics about guitar. You work with some organizations that are in the music industry, and I'd love to hear kind of about like what you do.
hmm Well, my full-time job is I'm a content marketer, strategy director at a content marketing agency called Content Harmony. But when I go home, I don't just, turn on Netflix or whatever. I help with this organization called Artist Home. And Artist Home is local promoters, and they put on just these great local festivals, small ones, and do some one-off shows here and there and secret shows. And they really help to grow and support these, especially younger performers, um, who are just starting out. I mean, you go to these festivals. The one coming up soonest is Timber Outdoor Music Festival. It's July 12th through 14th in this beautiful little town called Carnation, Washington, and the lineup hasn't been announced yet, but it's it's just these great small bands that you are some of them are going to be really big. I mean, you think about bands like The Head and the Heart, and the first time a lot of people heard about them was at a show and festival called Doe Bay Fest that the people who book Artist Home, especially Kevin Sir, booked. So these are bands that are young, but they're just so great. And it's more about the music and getting a vibe going than about booking bands who are going to sell a lot of tickets. Because the people who headline our festivals, they are not necessarily always at the top of other festivals. Sometimes they are, and it's so exciting when they are, and it's always really well deserved. But like last year, we had Shovels and Rope headlining, and I just love them, and they were great, and they were a big hit at Timber, and just kind of the exact right vibe. But they were supposed to play another festival up in Canada, and they were one of the lower billed bands on that festival. So people go to these festivals knowing that they're going to hear great music. It's going to be stuff they're going to hear later. They're going to get exposed to their new favorite band. In the meantime, they're also going to be in this just gorgeous laid back environment that's family friendly, that has like REI sponsors, free kayaking and stand up paddleboarding. We bring in real astronomers to do stargazing because you can't really see the stars as much in Seattle, but you can see them beautifully out in Carnation. Like nature painting,
Hmm.
yoga, and those kinds of things. So we just try to create these events that are not just about music and not just about bands you've heard, but are, experiences to get to know your community a little bit better and meet new people and be exposed to new things. And we work really hard to just create a really great vibe. We have another one in August, called Chomp, and that's like a local sustainability festival. So it has a different vibe than just a music festival, but music's a big part of that one too. And just getting to know your community and getting to be a better member of your community, and that's really the big part. And then of course we just have our all out party shows every year. We do a New Year's show that's local bands, like, well, members of local bands. It's like the best karaoke cover night. You hear songs that you forget how much you loved when you were in high school, and you just are with a couple hundred of your favorite people who some of them some of them you don't, just belting out lyrics to like songs by the Breeders and 80s power ballads and everything like that. So it's just really, really cool after years, and not necessarily a more corporate kind of music business job, but definitely a more corporate music business city. To be able to come here and just, a couple hours a week, sit down with people I just adore and help them make these festivals that are just so much fun, successful with, what I had been doing for 4 years and longer than 4 years when I lived in Nashville. I mean, it's stuff I can do pretty quickly and easily, and I'm really glad that I have, a skill set that can actually help people who are creating something that I personally believe in so much.
Yeah, that sounds way cool. Tell me a little bit about like what you did in Nashville.
Just in general.
Yeah, like you definitely well, you worked a little bit in the music industry there, but yeah, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, so I did a few things, starting kind of with internships. I was talking with you all about this before the podcast started, but I entered a publishing company I don't think exists anymore, uh, just as an intern one summer. So I kind of realized that wasn't really what I wanted to do. I didn't really want to be a song plugger. So next I went into a PR kind of internship, and that was actually in New York. That was at a record label called the Beggars Group, Matador Records XL, um, in 4AD. And I really, really liked that, the PR stuff. And then I came back to Nashville. I started a blog called NashvilleForFree.com that really took off and got the attention of a really wonderful woman named Lenore Kinder and one of her employees at the time, Kai, and they brought me on as an intern. At the time, Lenore was at AEG Live, the Messina group. I think they have a different name now.
Okay.
But I got into the music promotion and the marketing of live shows, and that kind of was part of the PR stuff that I liked at the Beggars Group. But I really like marketing because it's always changing and you get to be creative in it and you have to kind of stay on your toes. A lot of times with just like traditional PR and a lot of things in the music business, and I think it's one of the reasons the music business isn't doing so well, is people kind of they just go through the motions of things. Like press releases have looked the same for 100 years. Like this kind of thing, the way people have traditionally been marketing shows have been the same for 100 years. You do ads on the radio station, you put up some posters near the college campus, and you call it a day. Um, but as new technologies and social media and email marketing and SEO and content marketing came up, I really was into that, and I sort of found my place there. And that's how I got the job doing the marketing at Rock House.
Way cool. Uh, so you mentioned that, and I would, if you don't mind, kind of break it down because some of that it might be some terms that our listeners might be unfamiliar with. But when you talk about content marketing, what exactly is that?
Content marketing is a lot of things, but marketing itself is kind of in a weird world between advertising and I guess maybe PR. But the content marketing, it's if you read a blog post, if you see a cool informational video, if you see engaging social media posts, like that all is content. Content marketing can be everything from the copy that's written on a website to this big viral video campaign that people spend a lot of money on, to infographics, which people have a love and hate relationship with. And it can just be, some people really minimize it and call it storytelling. And that's part of what it is, but it's storytelling with a purpose, and that purpose is to get people introduced to your brand, so that and developing a real relationship with them, so that then when they need your product, they remember it later and they
Hmm.
think about you first.
Okay. Well, that
Yeah.
sounds really cool. That's something that I don't think that when most people think about the music industry, that's the first thing, but I think it's vitally important to where the direction of where it's headed and remaining viable. In your opinion, what do you think is you could like an artist could do and stay viable in this climate where everything's turned upside down?
Well, it's It's harder in some ways and it's easier in some ways. It's harder to sell 1 million copies of your record. It's easier to get 1 million people to listen to your song. Um, I think that a big thing is developing a relationship with people who are fans, who could potentially become fans, networking and, showing up in someone else's Instagram account, where you're performing with them or you're talking with them. Um, so just growing a community, even if it's not necessarily a physical one. And I think that is one thing that a lot of female guitarists are excelling at right now, thanks to magazines like She Shreds giving them all a place to suddenly come together. Because women have been playing guitar this whole time, but in our own little silos. And sometimes we were, one of a few people in our local community that we really knew about. But thanks to hashtags, we
Mm-hmm.
can find each other a lot more easily. And it's kind of amazing how that happens, especially on Instagram, where you can literally just type hashtag she shreds and find just pages of women just posting videos of themselves playing guitar.
Yeah.
I think pickup jazz is another really good example of that. You just hashtag pickup jazz and you're playing your jazz licks, and you might get featured on his channel. And that's just getting out there and really putting yourself out there and doing everything that you can to do something that really builds a meaningful connection with people, and talking to them and responding to them, and maintaining boundaries, because that's very important. um, and then put out good stuff, stand behind it, don't put out bad music.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how big your how many Facebook followers you have or Twitter followers you have if you're putting out garbage music. And don't buy fans on Twitter. I know it seems super easy, but you're not really. It's the worst. It's the worst thing you can do.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that my mind was going exactly there, like as you said it, and I was going to bring it up if you didn't. Tugging about pickup jazz on Instagram, I've seen way more of exposure to what some of the female guitarists are doing that like I've never come across this stuff on other social media as of yet. But like Instagram is like the hotbed for um, all these guitarists and especially the work that Sam Blakelock is doing with pickup jazz. He is just featuring just some great talents who are working musos who are you know doing it, and he's capturing them doing it in their best light. And I just think that's an amazing thing that's going on. Like his pickup LA, that was actually my pick last week. His pickup show in LA, where he's done this whole video series of this house show that he did, and these people that most people don't know that or have ever heard of, and he's featuring these amazing musicians, and they're in their prime, and they're just you can see the pure joy in their face of what they're doing. It's an amazing age, and I think what we're gonna see is more uh, of these obscure, hey, where did this person come out of? Names kind of come into prominence in the music culture, and people are going to scratch their heads and wonder how did they bypass all of this industry to get here, where they are, and here they are. So it's
Yeah,
an
I
amazing
mean,
time in the music industry.
yeah, I mean, these people, I mean, I'm sure they're playing live shows, but I don't think that they're playing, coffee shops 7 day a week and then trying to graduate to opening for somebody to get some dingy club and then graduating to headlining that dingy club and then graduating to, I don't think they're doing that quite as hardcore as people had to do in the 90s. And I'm
Yeah.
sure there are some musicians who are incredibly resentful about that. But I mean, in the 90s or whenever, even then you were doing everything you could to give yourself an advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting how the path is changing, and so
Hmm.
it'd be interesting to see what happens. And the way, like, even us, like, what we were told, this is how you make it. Well, all the rules have changed.
Oh, they changed in 1999.
Yeah. What? Why 1999?
Napster.
Okay, that makes
I
sense.
mean, everyone blames Napster, even when I was in college, and it was kind of obvious that, Napster changed things, but in reality, all of these labels could have taken it on and just gotten ahead of it, and they didn't. And there's a reason, the reason iTunes is the gold standard, despite it being just horrible, is because they were the only ones who did it. But there were people like Prince, for example. He was one of the first musicians out there who sold his music directly to fans. He bypassed record labels and still sold 300,000 copies of a record, of like a 4 CD collection that was like $50 or something ridiculous like that. And also just horrible. Uh, well, I shouldn't say horrible, really uneven. Just a weird collection. I forget what that was. The crystal ball thing that he did in the 90s. Yeah.
Speaking of uneven and horrible, I found one of my CDs from college the other day that I burned from Napster, and every track was totally off on output and terrible.
Oh, right.
I had all this terrible quality, like it was really bad. And I was like, did I really think this was good?
No, but you thought it was free and convenient, and it was.
Exactly.
I
And
just
then
just remember, was
my
it
favorite,
LimeWire that it
Ooh.
just gave
yeah.
my computer tons of viruses?
Totally, dude. I remember LimeWire. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And everything being so mislabeled. Like this is not what it's supposed to be at all. Like, I don't know what this is.
It's just a clown laughing for like 5 minutes. You're like, what?
Yeah.
It's just
I felt
came
so
straight out of
guilty.
your nightmares.
I wouldn't do it. I just felt so guilty. I was like, I can't do this. And so I went to the pawn shop and bought my CDs instead.
At a pawn shop, that wasn't any better for the artists.
Yeah, but they were actual CDs. And so I bought my Super Junkie Monkey, and I bought my Kung Fu Diesel, and I bought my Pop Will Eat Itself at the pawn shop.
I just love that a jazz DJ from NPR told me all of those band names.
They're really good.
He is.
Oh,
He's
man.
like Sergeant Sultry. I don't know what happened. We've been at. I think Josh is using that mic pedal,
I
and
am,
he's not
but
telling. And he's not telling us.
I'm not using the voice correction or anything, but no, it is the evening, and I did just do a delivery with my uncle who likes to talk, so I spent like 3 hours talking to him, and so my voice is kind of, I might as well have smoked to like a pack of Pall Malls or something. My voice is kind
I
of
never
scratchy.
spent 3 hours talking to anybody.
I'm not a talker, and that's what happened.
Well, back on topic. We well, moving on. We know that Emily, we want to talk about. We've noticed that you are really into offsets, and I thought it would be a fun topic to talk about offset guitars. Um, why? I mean, let's kind of hash that out for a minute. What's cool about them? And we'll have kind of a discussion about that.
Ooh. Well, yeah, I've loved offset guitars since the first time I saw Elvis Costello live and bought his CDs. And he always had that Jazz Master. And I think I was probably 15 years old and maybe 16. But gosh, I just wanted one the moment I saw one. And I couldn't really justify getting one. Frankly, not that I could find one. I don't know if it was a Cincinnati thing and then a Nashville thing. You see them everywhere now, but back then, just the places I was going to, like they weren't like guitar centers because people at the guitar center were kind of rude to me whenever I would go in. I would always go to the smaller local shops. There was this great place I went to called Moeller Music, and they didn't really have any. So I think it was, gosh, I was out of college and I had been on a few dates with a guy named Andrew, and I was talking about how much I wanted a Jazz Master, and he said to me, "Well, the craft in Japan, they're really not bad for the money, so I went to a Guitar Center. I looked at one, didn't really like it. And then next April came around, and I'd met my now husband, and we went to a smaller local shop together. And I saw this 1962 AVRI series Jazzmaster, and I was like, well, I was gonna put that tax refund into my Roth IRA, but I think this would be a better investment for my soul. And my husband, he's just great. He's like, you need to buy this guitar.
Well,
Didn't
you
even
put
say,
it
well, you
that
should
way
think
to
about it. Yeah.
you put it that way to him. Hey, this is good for my soul. No, you can't have it.
He's my dream man. I found the right one. I'm just reminded this constantly. Like every time, if I look at him and say, I just like can give him a look if I'm in a guitar shop, and this has only happened one other time where he's looked at me and said, I think that it's going to really hurt if you don't buy that guitar. Like he just says, you should get that. You should get that for yourself, and then I'll haggle him down. But no. So I bought that Jazzmaster, and it was just, immediate love. I've always kind of struggled with some kinds of guitar shapes. Though weirdly, I always played my primary electric guitar, and actually the only electric guitar I had for years was a Gibson ES 135, and those are big. But
Oh, wow.
something about them was it worked for me. But the Jazzmaster just felt a lot easier. I started on a Squire Strat, and just as I kind of grew out of it. It started just being kind of uncomfortable and certain. I'm a busty girl, and it just was uncomfortable for me. But the Jazzmaster, I think it's just the offset body fits a lot better to my body. So I had that one for Christmas the other year. My husband got me one of the Magnificent 7 series Jazzmasters with a Bigsby. And
Wow.
right now it's a great present. The local shop in Seattle was having a 40% off of everything sale, and that was included in the everything. So I got
That's
he got that for 40% off.
wow. That sounds fun. Going back. Let's go back to a couple guitars you just mentioned. The Gibson ES. Was it 135? You said.
135.
Yeah,
Okay.
though they don't make them anymore.
Okay. I know that's kind of like a thing. Josh, you've talked a lot about that. How similar is that to the 125?
Well, that's the one. Did you get one of the '90s ones with like the funny script ES 135, and then it had no F holes in it, or did you get
No,
one of the?
it's got F holes. It's the 2003, I think.
Oh, okay. Man, those are cool guitars.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had two at the shop. One was a satin finish with P90s, and one was the standard glossy finish with humbuckers. And I chose well because I was looking at the value of them, and the other one, not so much. But the one I have, I think I got it for $800 or $900. And if you look up on Reverb now, they are quite a bit more than that because they stopped making them. They started making the 137, and instead of having, I think, a balsa wood block in the middle, it's mahogany or something heavy, and it just sounds more like a Les Paul than a jazz guitar.
Yeah, I've tried a couple of those, and those are nothing special for sure. I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's a nice collection of guitars, Emily.
Man, yeah.
The Jazzmasters you have, are they you showed us a picture of them, and they're like kind of like yin and yang. Like they're did you do that? Did they come like that, or did you do that?
Oh, they came like that. It was the first one, the 62 reissue, was always black with a tortoise, and the Mag 7 was always white with a black.
That's super cool.
Interesting.
Huh.
Interesting.
Yeah,
they
it
totally.
just worked out.
That's awesome. And I like what you said about Strats too. I just remember when I first started, my Uncle Mike was really kind of like my first like influence. My dad's brother. He was always into he always into Strats. And Strats, he always talked about how they were perfect for the tummy, like the tummy, like, just the bevel there and everything. He's like, these are great for your stomach. They sit right there. And the Strat's the most perfect guitar in the world. They are until you sit down. I mean, they're
Yeah.
great when if you're like and he held the guitar pretty normal, right? Like he held it like right where stereotypically somebody would hold a guitar. and if you hold it there, it's perfect. Like right under the chest, like right kind of at the diaphragm, right there on your abs, and it works there. But if you sit down, it's like the most uncomfortable guitar in the world. If you
It's
try to
so
play it.
unnatural, and I wear them high.
Yeah, and I wear them high too. And I don't. I mean, I got to get down into the frets. And the way I play guitar, I don't put my thumb. I play guitar weird. I like wrap my thumb around the neck, so
Yeah,
I don't put
same.
my thumb on the bottom of the neck. So yeah, I can't hold a guitar low. Like Jimmy Page, like an orangutan. I can't do that. Like I can't hold the neck. I can't get down far enough. So like Strats are actually pretty uncomfortable for me to play. For that reason, I actually, and for that matter, I never really held Les Pauls that well either. And I've come to the realization that basically the way I play guitar is I kind of like my favorite way to play is almost like a classical player where I sit down and like the bottom of the guitar is kind of like between my legs, and it's the bout's on my left knee, and it's kind of in front of me rather than over my like I can't play a guitar underneath my arm pit kind of thing. I can't play like that. Like
Do you put
my
your foot on a
shoulders
little
start-
stool too?
Yes, I do.
You
I
really?
actually do. I have one of those little. Yes, I have. It's a little
No.
$15. Like it looks like a gas pedal, and I put my left foot. My left foot either has my toes up in the air, or I have my toe on the ground and my heel up in the air, or I have to bring my foot up and I have to set it on something, and that's how I play most of the time.
Mr.
Yeah, I
Mojo
get
uses a
that.
footrest.
I
Mr.
do.
Mojo
I look.
uses a footrest.
It's totally weird. Like I. That's why I need a big bass drum in front of me so I don't look stupid.
No, you should. If
That would be
if
cool.
you're standing, it's also great to have a footrest when you're standing. It really helps. Like I use a standing desk all day, and I used to have a paint can that I'd put my foot up on, and it helped my back.
That's rad. No, it does
Yeah.
though. It feels good that way to put your foot up on something because I have like a little 5-watt combo amp, and I put my foot up on that all the time when I'm playing standing up. And it's not cool at all unless you were playing like on stage and you had like a stage monitor there, like that. That's funny.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
You know,
Yeah.
when I now that I think about it, when I'm standing and I'm playing and I want to get up those upper frets, I actually put a foot back, and then I take my my leading foot, probably my right foot, and I go on my tiptoe, and I kind of like lean back when I want to get up into my upper frets. And so it's my wife looks at me and she laughs and she thinks, oh yeah, you're doing your rock star stance. Now, no, that's actually how I get up into the upper frets. It's because I'm leaning back and I'm putting my foot up. And what it does is it pushes the guitar body away from me. And I do play low.
This
I
is
do
the
play-
Clifton. Go ahead.
I do play low because I've got orangutan arms on a very short body, so I do play low. But yeah, that's interesting. Everybody kind of handles that differently.
Yeah, this is the Clifton Worley Show, the ergonomic guitarist podcast.
Yeah, well, we are talking about offsets, so
we explore every topic.
The thing is, though, is I haven't even given an offset a time of day. I've never sat down and ever had any desire. Okay, so I did play the J Mascis Squire, and
awesome.
I was super impressed
Yeah.
with that guitar. Like I could have bought that guitar. Everything about that guitar, I was like, for one, I thought he was awesome for having such a good guitar so cheap with the Squire, but I haven't really. That was the only one that ever spoke to me. I don't know. I know they're a hell of a lot better, more comfortable than Explorers. I had an Explorer when I was in college, and I couldn't stand that
terrible.
guitar. That was terrible. I mean, I guess you were standing up. I mean, it was okay if you were standing up, and I wanted to be James Hetfield, so it was like,
Well,
yeah.
That's why he looks like that when he plays. He
he's in
bends way
pain,
over.
right?
He,
The gargoyle.
you look at him, he bends way over. He hunches up, and his guitar is actually 2 foot away from his stomach. he's like. Now, Emily, have you played one of those J Mascis Squires? Have you tried
No,
one?
I
Oh, man,
I haven't.
They're beautiful golden Ondice pickguard and white, and I'll tell you, I think you'll be super impressed. It's actually probably one of the best Squires, right next to the Classic Vibe. Actually, in some ways, it's better than the Classic Vibe because he basically said, you know what? I want all the vintage stuff on there, and I want it all be correct, but I also want it to play really, really well, and I do not want it to be a Fender. I want it to be a Squire, and I want it to be like $500. And I mean,
Nice.
and it's just it fits his aesthetic so much because he's like, screw you guys. You want to make me a signature model, fine, but I want all of my fans to be able to get it if they want it.
Yeah.
Because his whole
That's
story
fair.
was like, I went into a guitar shop and I kind of wanted a Strat, but the guy was screwing me around, so I ended up with the Jazzmaster, and now it's pretty cool. But that's my Jay Mascis impression. But yeah, he's
Spot on.
yeah, I know, right? I know, right? I just need the Moses hair, and I'd be all good.
Actually,
Oh my
he's got the best voice and interview style ever. That
Yeah.
guy, he's so laid back, and like the only time he ever lights up is when he starts talking about like fuzz.
Oh yeah, this big muff.
He's like, I got like 7 fuzz. He's got like like 4. He's got one fuzz that lowers lowers everything, and one fuzz that raises everything, and one fuzz that gets fuzzier, and another fuzz that acts like a boost. He's got like,
Yeah,
it's
for sure. Getting back to Emily, we haven't actually talked about what do you play? I mean, you play Jazz Masters, but what do you actually play? Do you
I play
have
jazz
music out there?
music.
You play jazz? You play jazz music, huh?
No. Actually, most of my formal training is just jazz stuff. So that's kind of when I haven't written in a very long time, much, but I wrote a riff every day in December as part of the She Shreds One Riff a Day challenge, and most of it was kind of jazzy stuff. One thing really, if you ever watched Twin Peaks, it was very much Dale Cooper like walking through the woods with a cup of coffee in his hand. Um, but my written songs were kind of folky Americana stuff. I definitely have the music out there. Surprisingly, there aren't a lot of other Emily Harrises doing the music. Emmylou Harris, however, I am not her. I wish I
I
was.
was gonna say that's the one that came to mind when I saw your last name. I was like, I mean Lou Harris, huh?
Emmylou Harris and Emily Harris in Nashville, Tennessee. Once I worked a bluegrass event, and for some reason they put my whole name on the name tag and nobody else's full names. And people kept coming up to me because I was like a greeter. And I probably had 20 people say, that's a great name for working this event because Emmy was playing. Once I was, oh gosh, she and I've had so many misconnections. It's so sad, but I was invited I helped the Americana Music Festival in Nashville do their schedule for a couple of years, and part of my payment was $0, but I got passes to the festival, which that was payment enough for me, and I'd get really good seats to the award show. And one year I couldn't go, I had to give away my seats, and the gentleman who runs it, Jed, came up to me. I saw him at another event. He's like, how'd you like those seats? And I was like, I had an emergency. I couldn't go. And he's like, oh, Emily. I'm like, oh, no. He's like, I sat you next to Emmylou Harris. I was like, oh, no. My heart just broke. But the whole time I was in Nashville, if I bought stuff online, it didn't matter if it was actually music related or if it was like the Scrubs season 6 on DVD. Was there a season 6 of that show? If it was, I have it on DVD. I bought it, and I would get it, and there would be notes from the sellers, and they were never anything like long or like I love your music, but it'd be like blue ? Or I love your record with Mark Knopfler.
That's hilarious.
I'm like, oh man, like I forgot about that one.
Oh man.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's
But I have a folky kind of thing out there if you want to listen to it. It's called Elephant Angelfish.
I love it, man. That's great.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have to listen to that. Yeah.
Well, we know that you like offsets, but you entered the 60 Cycle Hum mod contest, and we noticed that you like to do some modding and kind of playing around with guitars, and kind of talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, sure. It's something I've played guitar since I was 8, and I was 27. I'm like, I've never done anything with a guitar. I've never even opened it up to look inside. I've just changed the strings. I play it, and nothing's ever gone wrong, so I've never had to. And I've always gotten just guitars that I liked as they were. But I had bought this Harley Benton guitar back in last July or something like that. and it's made to look like Prince's Honer Mad Cat, but the pickguard is wrong. So I ordered another pickguard, and that was all fine. And then I was never happy with the way the headstock looked, so I decided to refinish the headstock. My first time ever applying a water slide decal, and it looked so great. It gave me so much confidence. When I saw the mod contest, I thought, oh, I'll buy a kit, I'll put it together. And I think a couple days after I got the kit, I go to this great store in Seattle called Trading Musician, and they have this first act body, and it reminds me of a double cut Les Paul Jr. It's got the single pickup. It's just kind of wild looking. I'm like, I kind of want this, but it was $20. I go up to the guy. I'm like, I don't want it for $20. He's like, you want it for 15? I'm like, yeah, I'll take it for 15. I sand it down. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I have just like this vision, like I've always wanted an LPJ style guitar, double cut, like Kathleen Edwards. Well, like Billy Joe Armstrong has a double cut, but I kind of rolled with that one because I was trying to get a finish on the Telecaster. I was just not getting what I wanted. But I had a friend in Minneapolis, St. Paul, who's never had an electric guitar despite playing it since she was a kid. So I'm like, I'm going to make her a Purple Dream machine. I'm going to make it a Vikings guitar / a Prince guitar. I made it purple, gold hardware, dropped a Telecaster neck that I just had lying around for some reason in it. And it turned out really well. It worked in everything. I found a P90 for a humbucker routing because the pickups that come with the first act guitars are just trash. And it's a LPJ, it needs a P90 in it. So I was really, really happy with how it turned out. Shocked it turned out so well. More shocked that it worked. Entered it in the mod contest, and one of the guys from Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar in Seattle, I don't think he lives in Seattle anymore. It was one of his honorable mentions, and I was so excited I screamed. I scared my cat.
That's awesome.
Show title: I scared my cat.
You know, no, you did a really nice job. I was like one of the first people to enter that. Like I submitted my entry way early, and I just I found a 64 Harmony Stella Parlor, and I just did I did a lot of work to that guitar, but I really didn't mod it that much. I kind of just put a sound hole pickup in it and wired it to a jack, and put some tuners on it and made a little blues beast out of it. But like when people started submitting their stuff in, I was like, wow, I really should have done something cooler.
Yeah,
that's cool though.
When we saw yours, it was like, holy cow! Actually yours was kind of the first one I saw. Is like, that looks pro. That looks like looks like something that I wouldn't go buy in a guitar store. I'd try it out, compared to some of the other kind of rattier stuff, which I like the rat stuff too. But man, that was just such a cool look, And then the Prince one you did, the Telly. I was just like thrilled with that when you put that picture out there. That was so cool.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. And the thing is, like that guitar costs $185, and I think I got a free shipping deal on it from Germany. And it's one of my favorite guitars. It's actually next to the amps, and I pick it up about as much as I pick up the Jazzmasters. It's just It's such a nice feel. This neck is a really nice satin finish. It's kind of a thick C. Gosh, I like have a love-hate relationship with that neck because the dots are painted on. It just looks so trashy from up close, but it looks pretty nice from far away. It sounds that I think you would spend more than $185 for good pickups, but they sound fine.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well,
I think so. You can look at my Instagram profile and tell me if I'm wrong.
So that guitar is, I mean, that has like that Prince, like that classic Prince Telly look.
Yeah, that's somebody commented on a picture of it that it looked like Prince's. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of the point.
Yeah.
That was me.
But was it?
Yeah, that was me.
Was that you in the Wampler group? Because I think it was in the Wampler group.
Yeah, I'm in all the groups.
He's in all the groups.
I don't listen to anything, but I'm in all the groups.
Fair. Yeah. No, I do love that guitar. I don't know what else to say about it other than I'm really proud of how it turned out. And the purple one, I barely even cried making it. and my friend got it in the mail, and it's gonna hang up in her new house, and I'm just very excited. The ones I'm making, like I'm really just learning the stuff on the fly. I bought some books, I'm watching some tutorials. I'm not keeping any of them. I might keep the Mustang I'm working on, but depending on how it turns out. But I'm just trying to find friends who have never had electric guitars, who've maybe played acoustics their whole life, or friends who want their kids to learn. And I'm just gonna love them and let them go because I don't want them in my house. I don't have the space.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
Um,
cool.
yeah.
Well,
Well, let's move into some picks. Um, I know I've got a pick that I'm burning to share with the world and our listeners, but this is kind of this one hits home for me. Uh, I've got my cousin. He's in a band called Great Peacock, and they have been together for probably about 5 or 6 years now, and they are fixing to drop their second album. And I was blown away today. My wife actually posted this in our group. That Rolling Stone Country magazine like had them as one of the top uh, new country albums coming out this year that people needed to pay attention to. My jaw dropped. I was like, yes, like I hope this gets them the attention that they, finally need, and they've been out touring hard. And so I would like to play that track if you've got it ready, Josh.
Tell me that you love me if you're going to tell me goodbye. Don't tell me that you want me if you're going to run and hide. I can feel a heartbreak coming down. I can feel a heartbreak coming down. I can feel a heartbreak coming down on this town. Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, they've got their new album Grandpa Real coming out soon. Look out for that. And yeah, so that's my pick for this week. Who wants to go next?
I can go next.
Okay.
My pick is Sun Volt, and I actually thought Josh and I have mentioned this before, but it was Low Volt, and I kind of thought it was Low Volt, but it wasn't. It was Sun Volt, and I was on that Spotify list that New Blues or New Folk and New Blues, and he was on there a couple times, and that band's pretty good. I really like it. Yeah, just there's not really much I could say about it. Just roll it, Josh.
Times when there's more lost and found, downtimes mixed with days of wonder, a real life spinning merry-go-round. With this back against the wall, all will soon be revealed. Sirens sound and spirits fall, but just this back against this wall.
Man, that's my kind of songs, my kind of
Yeah.
music. Yep.
So I knew that. Yeah, I knew this like had some affiliation with Wilco, but what happened? How I kind of ran across them was that list. But the first thing I heard was that guitar sound. It was one of the tracks on, and it wasn't even this song, but one of the tracks on this CD, and it's the one that's got him on the front with like the old hollow body on it, J on the front. Jay Farrar. Is it Farrar? How you say his name?
Yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of those opened up, and the guitar tones on that album are so good.
Yeah,
Just
man.
swampy and just excellent tone, and the slide playing's just pristine and sloppy in all the right ways, and it just I love it. I listened to it at work this week twice, and I really want it. It's good stuff, but actually it sounds like Emily knows more about the band than I do. Way more. I don't
Yeah.
know anything about this band. I stumbled across them this week, honestly.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Because
yes.
yeah, that was back with Uncle Tupelo. He was in that with Jeff Tweedy from Wilco back in the early '90s, and they basically invented, not maybe not invented, but they popularized the idea of alt country. If you've ever read
Yeah.
anything on that website or that magazine, No Depression, I mean, they had a record called, I think it was a record or a song called, where they covered the old folk song No Depression, and that's kind of where that came out of. So they had some sort of feud, he and Jeff, and Jeff started Wilco and Jay started on Sunvolt.
I didn't know.
Interesting.
I didn't know it was a feud. I thought that was just mutual. I just heard when Wilco started, and I'm a big Wilco fan, that he just kind of got tired of all the loudness and he wanted to hear himself sing, you know? And
Maybe. I don't know. I always just kind of assumed that, I just assumed a feud.
he was
Maybe
he
I
was
like the drama.
yeah, he was massively into alcohol at the time too. Actually, if you listen to, I recommended it before in one of my previous picks, The Hilarious World of Depression, really good podcast. Jeff Tweedy's on there, and he talks a bit about that. Just something to look at because it's really an interesting story. And hearing it, you can hear how they're two sides of the same coin. Those two bands, what they split off into. Just great music all around for sure. Since I'm talking so much, I think I'll go next with my pick. And I just discovered this today, listening to some music. This is Parker Millsap, and it's really interesting stuff. It's kind of like a lot of his stuff is very influenced by his life, but at the same time, you can hear this. He's winking at his own pain, and I love that in a song. I love that in an artist that when they're you know that this stuff is coming out of their heart and out of their pain, but they're like, you know what? I'm nothing, and this is all a joke anyway. And this song is very fitting for that because the title of it is The Very Last Day, and it's talking about when the bomb drops and the world blows up. And I mean, that's my kind of song. So let's go ahead and play it.
Can save you in that hour. I won't cower when that eruption lays us all to waste. Gonna clutch my heart and lift my face. Watch that mushroom rushing up to space. Gonna sing Amazing Grace. You know there ain't no reason being so afraid. Yeah, you can try to hide, but it's gonna get you anyway. Yeah, when I see that cloud, gonna sing out loud. Praise the Lord. It's the very, very, very last day.
So what I love about that is that it's like, I just love how I love the nihilism of it, but really what I like about it is that, he probably generally wouldn't feel that way, but being able to wink at something so frightening it's hilarious, I think, and enjoyable. And I've made you guys all feel very awkward and quiet now.
No, that's a sound, man.
Yeah.
I love that. That sounds so
It's
cool.
like a hint of Elvis in his voice.
He's got such a great voice.
Yeah.
Just so much power.
Yeah, and he goes in directions with his other songs. It's like it's so intense, and at the same time, it's so honest. But and it's so funny at the same time. It's like, how can you do all those things at once? You can hear this comes out of a genuine pain, like the stuff that he's doing, but he's hilarious at the same time. He's making jokes about this pain that at the time, that he was just, it sounds like he was just crying through this stuff, but he's making jokes about it now. It's like the best stand-up comedy is what this is, but it's put to a great beat in a really interesting story. Yeah, I was just thrilled. I listened to that and went off on all kinds of little jags and zigs and zags with all the different music that comes up on Spotify when you've gone through the guy's entire playlist. So yeah, it was really interesting. So what about you, Emily? We don't usually let the guests go last because we like to torture them, but what is your pick?
Well, I picked the new Nico Case song. It's called Hell On. I mean, I've been a big Nico Case fan for years. We're talking about powerful voices, and she definitely has one. But just listening to her musical progression from, basically being some sort of country noir singer to really her own thing completely, it's hard to categorize, and I'm sure that's intentional. But also just knowing so much about kind of the process that she's gone through, really taking over the reins and just getting more comfort in being her own producer, has been a really cool thing. But what I love about this song, and I kind of doubt it's going to get to this part, but other than the really unique instrumentation, is one thing that's great about a lot of her songs is that the song you're listening to at the beginning is not the song you're listening to at the end. It opens up in a big way. I believe there's a key change in this one. It's dark and it's cool and it's classic Nico Case, but something entirely new.
So we're gonna start.
God is not a contract or a guide. God is in a specified time. You cannot time its tables. It sets no glass or gables. God is a lusty tire fire. Its bristles scrape and strike the stage. Rock, paper, scissors, rage, have mercy on the natural world. My voice is not the liquid waves, the perfect rings round a heron's legs. My voice is straight garroting wire, a stolen mile of fingerprints, peeled up quiet from the dunes, captured and respooled as ruin to be used at a different time. My voice is a fracture, a shin bone's lust.
Yeah. So it's kind of a creepy haunted circus vibe. I mean, I love a waltz. She and Liz Phair do them really, really well.
Yeah. Heck yeah, that's awesome.
The voice on that, like, it just draws you in, and like, I didn't get to listen to the whole song, but it's like it's taking you somewhere, and you don't know where it's taking you, but it draws you in. And
Yeah, it's kind of a
yeah.
will-o'-the-wisp sort of thing in the
Yeah.
moor.
It's cinematic, is what it is. It sounds you can almost see images of what's happening. You don't need a music video because it's playing in your head because of her voice and the instrumentation.
Oh,
Yeah.
but should you watch the music video, it is special. It's
I
just
bet.
her laying there, and there's all these snakes crawling over her. And the thing is, you can tell that
Ugh.
she's so into it. She's like, the director said, like, I was very sorry that we finished on time and on budget, because she's like, I think Nico could have been there with those snakes all day.
Ugh, I can't stand.
Oh wow, no, that's my big fear. That'd be like my fear factor. But
They smell terrible. That's the thing. You
yeah,
can smell
Oh,
them.
I believe it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Well, we've been everywhere in this episode.
yeah.
Yeah, the smell of snakes.
Well, this has been fun.
Man, yeah, it's all great.
Yeah, Emily, it's been great getting to, hear a little bit of your story and what you do and your guitar playing, and and what you've been doing, working on the guitars and everything. And I tell you what, I'm so impressed. Like, you're such a wealth of information about the music industry, and I could talk all day about the ins and outs of that. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I'm always down to talk about music industry stuff. I mean, it's literally what I majored in college. Somehow I talked my parents into letting me major in music business, minor in songwriting, and emphasize in leadership.
Okay. Well,
Man, those are some trusting parents right there.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You
Well, they
can
let my
minor
brother.
in.
You can minor in songwriting.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, they let my brother go to art school, so they kind of they couldn't really tell me no after that. I'm like, well, she's still getting a business degree.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's
yeah, it's been a very cool to hear your side of the story, and it's definitely very thought provoking. And
For sure.
yeah, and thanks for having me, even though I know I can get a little, um, oh gosh, I don't even know the best word to describe how my mood goes in those threads. Inappropriate?
no, you're hanging. That's the thing. That we like to have people on who hang, and you can
Oh.
hang, and that's the whole thing. We really appreciate that because not everybody can. Not everybody can. It's a
Well,
it's a gift.
Well, someone did rage quit 60 Cycle Hum after I posted something, so there's,
They don't belong
Well.
there. That guy did not belong there.
No, that
He was
needs
so
to happen in
mad.
60. That needs to happen in 60 Cycle Hum sometimes.
Just-
It's
just know-
due.
don't get in a GIF war with. I think I said that wrong. A GIF or GIF. Don't-
Jiff.
Yeah, don't
get
get
in a peanut
don't
butter
get a
fight.
war with her because she will win.
Oh, the thing is, I would never
Jiff
go
war
up,
with Emily.
You can tell I'm not a
never go
millennial,
up
right?
I would
Brings
never
the
go up
peanuts.
against Cole. I bring the prince.
Yeah.
You bring the prince.
Yeah, man. All right,
No,
that's been fun.
Cole
Yeah.
will hit you with that cold logic. That
Oh.
cold Utah logic.
Yeah, or he'll just start doing that stupid what was that pig with the crap on the back of him over and over again. That's what
Yeah.
he's doing.
Well, he hits you with the cold hard facts, and it's a
Yeah.
little too much sometimes.
Yeah,
But,
he
yeah.
goes, man. It's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty to watch him explode.
It
Oh.
really is.
I love it. I love it. It's like, man, you get the world to burn and you get coal on fire, and it's
And
great.
Josh just likes to sit there and watch it happen.
Oh, it's my favorite thing. I love it.
Oh man.
All right, well, this has been a show.
Yes,
been
it
a
has.
show.
Hey, if you have heard something that you want to ask Emily, we'll discuss it in the group, and just invite you to come out and find us on Facebook, the Cliff Worley Show. We've got a group, a page, and follow us on Instagram. And if you like what you hear, follow the show. Yeah, thanks for joining in, and thank you, Emily, and hope to talk to you soon. And so,
Sounds great. Thanks, guys.
and thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem.
All right, bye, y'all.